Our scripture this morning is a continuation of John 13, now verses 12 through 17. When Jesus had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. "Do you understand what I have done for you?" he asked them. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly, I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these signs, you will be blessed if you do them." John 13, verses 12 through 17. ¿Qué tal los pies? That is what you hear often. It means, how are your feet? And you hear it often on El Camino, which is a pilgrimage walk in northern Spain. And that is our theme there today, walking, part of our journey. It translates as the way of St. James. It could also be the path of St. James, but I kind of prefer journey, which is broader and then includes our spiritual journey as well. St. James is the patron saint of Spain, and the walk is called El Camino de Santiago. That James is the same as James the Apostle, presumably various options and accords. One is he's the brother of Jesus, and the other he's the cousin of Jesus. And he went to Spain shortly after Jesus was crucified to preach the gospel. He was there about 10 years, and he gets a vision from the Virgin Mary, either his mother or his aunt, to return to Jerusalem. Now, I'm not saying that wasn't a true vision, but when he returned to Jerusalem, he was beheaded. So that was the end of James in that incarnation. Now, the legend holds that Santiago de Compostela is where he was eventually laid to rest. And Santiago de Compostela is that little town up in the northwestern corner of Spain and Galicia. One of the myths as to how he got there is that his decapitated body was taken up by angels, sailed in a rudderless, unattended boat, piloted by angels back to Spain. And on this journey, there are caves to hell, there are dragons, guardian bulls. Another legend says that when the ship approached the land, a royal wedding was taking place, and the ship scared the young groom who was on horseback, and they fall into the ocean. But miraculously, they are retrieved from the water, and they're all covered with seashells, which is one of the symbols of El Camino, scallop seashell. But you see, James never did the pilgrimage himself, so we are not tracing his steps. The pilgrimage began in the 10th century, almost 1,000 years later, to visit the relics and presumed bones of St. James, Santiago. And then 500 years later, in 1492, a very famous date, Ferdinand and Isabella, called that pilgrimage one of the three great Christian pilgrimages. And there are still three great Christian pilgrimages, one in Jerusalem, one in Rome, and this one towards Santiago. But the actual route, 500 years even further, almost in 1990, became a cultural route and a brilliant piece of marketing, because now we go just for the experience. There's the French route, the Portuguese route, which I believe, Keith, you just took also this.
We took three portions, two in the north from France and one in the south.
Beautiful. There's an English version, a primitive version. There's many ways, and obviously not all the route of St. James, as none of them were, but the route towards to visit where he was buried. Now, the minimum, presumably, you have to do to get your little certificate, which I'll show you now. You get this little passport, and you try to get stamps as you go. It's kind of a kid's game, but a lot of fun. So you get these little stamps. And the minimum you have to do is 100 kilometers, which is like 62 miles, typically over 5 days. We chose to do a little bit more in 6 days, so going about 70 miles or so. I have wanted to do that for 25 years or so since reading a book. And now is a good time. I wanted to actually just spend some time with my higher self, quite honestly. And so you walk and you walk 180,000 steps. Now, like the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, it soon doesn't matter what the legends are, what may or may not be true. It's what people believe. There's a palatable field of energy where countless people have put their prayers, their faith, deposits of hope and troubles and quests. And that is the magic and sacredness of the walk. And you walk. Yes. And then you start to find your rhythm. The curious thing is there's no competition. There's no speed. There's no technique. It's just, how are your feet? And then when people go on, you say Buen Camino, like a salutation. In this way, good way, good path, but for us, have a good journey. Because you don't see these people again. On day 2, I noticed that the rhythm of my walk matched the rhythm of my thoughts. What a curious development. Now I was walking and thinking in sync. And I liked that a great deal. I went, okay, this is the walk. Now I have to admit, we are old. I went with a friend, my wife also, and we didn't carry all our gear on our backpacks. We had a company take those between our hotels for us. We also didn't stay in those albergues where you spend, there's 20 beds in one room with a bunch of teenagers. No, we didn't do that either. We stayed in nice places off the beaten path. Sometimes we take a taxi to stay there, recuperate, and take a taxi right back to where we begin. So we did the walk, but we stayed in off the beaten path, so to speak. And still, by day 3, I was suffering a little bit. My feet hurt. I could feel every step of that 20 kilometers per day. But it's a pilgrimage, so you walk. But I think because my feet started to hurt, I started to find that my walking pace was matching my thinking pace, was matching my emotional pace. What a nice development. I was finding alignment. Now you speak to people, you might walk a bit together, but by day 3, your rhythm is pretty set. Even my friends and my wife that I was with, sometimes we talked and sometimes we didn't. We didn't really stay together. And by day 4, I'm in a groove. I speak with people, but I keep my pace. And now I've noticed really what I went for is that my physical pace matched my thinking pace, matched my emotional pace, matched my spiritual pace. It just had a rhythm to it. And by day 5, it pours with rain. Afterwards, I mean, at first it's just a drizzle, and then it's just a deluge. And we, of course, buy the ponchos too late and put them over the wet clothes, so I'm not sure what good it did. But my wife, who's not much of an explorer and doesn't like weather, in the end said that was the best day. Because what do? You walk. You're here to walk. And that for her was her pilgrimage day. By day 6, we head into Santiago de Compostela. And by day 6, I didn't want to stop. I was going to walk all the way to Portugal. And it's not because of the magical ground, the land, the countless thoughts and prayers shared over the same route for centuries. It wasn't the good food or my companions. It's not even the fact that my walking matched my thinking, matched my feeling, matched my spirit. that was in alignment. The magic is that you fall out of sync over and over again. You speak, you stop. You rest, it rains. And you just keep walking. It's not like you find higher self and it never leaves. It's like you find your rhythm and you lose it 180,000 times. And then you gain it back 180,000 times. It's like a dance in this membrane of divine flow that I found unbelievably powerful. In and out of rhythm, in and out of prayer, in and out of higher self, over and over again. And what struck me was this is what it's like on planet Earth. No offense to Santiago the saint, but we don't have to be perfect. We don't have to be saintly. We can't live in higher self all the time. But if we can get back there for a day, an hour, and maybe more realistically, just a few steps, we can get back to that sacred rhythm. Your own unique pace between you and your Creator. No servant is greater than the master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sends. The metaphor of the feet in our opening scripture indicates power, often in the Bible, authority, dignity. But those attributes are really not sustainable. It's the humility of the feet, the focus on our walk, the focus on our journey that allows us to step in and out of God's rhythm over and over again. And may your journey ever be thus, dear congregants. Buen Camino.